Did you know there's a cut line of dialogue from when Gideon tells you to find the Albinauric woman?
She hides in a cave to the west of the Laskia ruins, which jut from the mist-shrouded lake of Liurnia, together with her great wolf. She knows the location of the medallion's counterpart, I'm sure.
I think he sounds pretty funny when he says it, so it's a shame that got cut. And that dialogue is meant to point you towards the Slumbering Wolf Shack with Lieutenant in it, and the reason I bring that up is because back in 2021, before the game came out, this concept art for the map leaked. And you can see that basically all the big landmarks are in the place they are in the final game, except where Slumbering Wolf Shack is. Instead there's this ruined bridge, and it leads straight to this giant tree in the middle of the ocean. And I'm guessing that's meant to be an early location for the Halig tree. Unfortunately, this image is in terrible quality, so we can't really read it. But I'm pretty sure that at one point, the location of the Halig tree was near the shack or the village of Albinaurics or whatever was going to be here. In the game's files, there's these unused icons for this fancy necklace thing, as well as these 3 green bloody gem things that would slot into there. We don't really know anything about what this would be, but my theory is this was like an early version of the medallion you got to collect to get to the Halig tree, because this spiral tree is pretty similar to the Halig tree symbol, and they both have green stones on them. There's also a more normal looking necklace, and this one has some amber gems that would go in it. I don't have any clever theories about this one, but maybe it's the Dectus medallion, because that lets you go up to the Erd tree, right? And the pattern on these looks a bit like the Erd tree? I don't know. Speaking of the Halig tree, did you know you can see it all the way from the Altus Plateau? I think the best place to see it is behind the shaded castle. There's less fog and you can basically see it right there. Another cool thing I never really noticed, right from the start of the game you can see the Forge of the Giants on top of the mountaintops, and that's right next to the Erd tree. It's very cool how they deliberately lined it up like that. So it's no secret that FromSoft goes out of their way to line up really fancy views. But this one in particular I've never seen anyone mention. So when you leave the minor Erd tree catacombs in Caelid, there's all these giant pots lying around the Erd tree, right? But if you look at this one in the middle, that's actually a giant pot man, and he's really far away, but he sort of lines up with the other ones. So is that a funny perspective joke they did on purpose? I kind of think it is, but I've never seen anyone mention that. There's a similar joke they do in Caelid where you approach Rotview Balcony and you realize that the tree and the bird that's on it is a lot bigger than you thought, and it's some kind of horrible mutant bird, which is kind of your introduction to that enemy. And I think that's a pretty good joke. This one's not as crazy, but I just think it looks really nice. From the main Academy Grace, you can see they purposefully lined up the 4 belfries to make a really nice view, and that's very cool. And speaking of Rea Lucaria, when you're in the Church of Vows, you can see out the main window a good view of Rea Lucaria. And if you go outside there, you find an item corpse and it just has some crap item, but it's facing directly towards the tiny little balcony, which has a portal that goes to the Church of Vows. So that's very cool attention to detail there. Speaking of Liurnia, did you know there's only 3 silver fireflies in the game that are above ground? Because usually you just find them in big groups in the caves, but there's exactly 3 that are outside, and they're all in Liurnia in random hidden spots. So there's one on this broken bridge, and then there's one behind the highway lookout tower, and then there's one on the wall connected to the Frenzy Flame Tower. And this really confused me. I was like, why did they put these 3 random kind of worthless items in hidden spots? So they could just be funny Easter eggs by the level designer, or you could even say there's a lore thing because Liurnia is kind of silver related, because there's like the Albinaurics who have silver blood. But what I did, I looked in the level editor for every map that has silver fireflies and stuff, and I found that besides all the caves, Caelid has a bunch of hidden fireflies too, except they've all been dummied out. So they put them here when they were designing these levels, except they disabled them at some point, so you can't see them anymore. But they're also in pretty funny spots, like there's one on this church window. There would be one on this big ruin. And there'd be one on top of this cellar gate thing. And there's quite a few random spots, but obviously they've all been disabled. So my theory is that at one point the fireflies were going to be sort of rare items, but then they changed their mind and made them a lot more common, and they went around and disabled all these hidden ones, but they forgot the ones in Liurnia. So that's one huge blunder that FromSoft made. I'm going to go rapid fire through some very small mistakes now. There's a funny typo in the description for sleep pots, and they never fixed it. It says, throw enemies to cause buildup of sleep. But that's wrong, because sleep pots don't allow you to throw enemies, so they should change that. When you alter the Land of Reed's armor to remove the cape thing, the text mentioning the cape is removed, but it also gives you an extra paragraph about the Land of Reeds that you can't see anywhere else. So I like how there's some hidden lore that you need to uncover, but I don't know if this was intentional or not. This probably is a mistake though. It's an extremely minor discrepancy where Lionel's Greaves are missing the words to be in this last sentence. It says he declared himself her father, and all the other bits of the set say he declared himself to be her father. Okay, I'm sorry for how boring that fact was, but there's another one with Godric's Soldier Ashes. It says Royal Capital in the description, but then when you upgrade them, it says Royal City. So yeah, if you're wondering how a mistake like that can even happen, it's because when you upgrade them, it just replaces the item with an item that has better stats, but it's like a completely unique item. And that's how they've done upgrading items since like Demon Souls on PS3, so it's kind of funny that they still do that. And then the same thing happened with Warhawk Ashes, where the line changes from the storm is a Warhawk's cradle to the storm was its cradle. So that's enough nitpicking item descriptions, but mentioning Warhawk Ashes, you find these ashes by going to the location shown in the Prophecy painting, right? And there's a different painting in the game called Flightless Bird, and the item you just get from Flightless Bird is Fire's Deadly Sin, and the item description for that spell says it comes from an ominous prophecy, right? Prophecy like the painting. So I think what's happened is the Flightless Bird and the Prophecy painting had their names switched by accident at one point, because the Prophecy one gives you a bird, and then the bird one gives you a spell that mentions prophecy. So what a massive blunder. Another extremely cringe moment from FromSoft there. The dried liver items give you 15% elemental resistance to that element, except for the holy one, which gives you 35% resistance to holy damage. And you might think that's intentional because they seem to go out of their way to make holy damage really shit. Except in the DLC, they added the upgraded pickled livers. These will give you 25% elemental resistance, even the holy one. So that means the new upgraded one in the DLC that's really hard to make is a straight up downgrade from the easy one from the base game. So either they didn't notice or they don't care. And there's a chance they'll fix this for the Tarnished edition whenever that finally comes out, but we all know they're not going to. That's just the way FromSoft does things. And that's why we love them. In Renala's room, these globe things, after you destroy them, will respawn. That's because during the boss fight, there needs to be an infinite number of things to be thrown at you, so they magically respawn. But even when the boss fight is over, they still respawn like this. So you can break them and then stand where they're going to appear, and then your character sort of gets stuck and you can just run around inside an object. I was climbing the giant tree fungus things in Caelid, and I found at the top of this one you can see some weird falling shit from the sky that doesn't really make sense. During level design they must have put it in the wrong place or moved it out of the way and never deleted it. Speaking of seeing weird stuff in the sky, I was in Spirit Cooler Cave and I saw this floating item stuck on the wall really close to the ceiling of the cave, and I was like, what the fuck is that? There's no ledge up there. I know this video is really terrible quality, but if we look, that's exactly where it is. So why would there be an item all the way up there? I had absolutely no idea until I opened the level editor. and I went to that point where the floating item was, and then went all the way up, and look, they put a goat underneath the ground by accident. So I believe what happened was, as soon as the level loads, the goat falls all the way down, lands on the walled ceiling of the cliff, and then dies of full damage and drops an item, and that's what I saw. I was no-clipping around trying to get more footage of this, and look, the goat problem was even worse than I thought. They're just in this hidden little out-of-bounds, inaccessible cave for some reason. Anyway, you can't hurt them normally, but if I cheat, then we can see when they die they still drop items, just like the normal goats. And here's some footage of me ineptly hacking, trying to get footage of a ghost goat dying of full damage. I bet you've never seen that before. Speaking of going out of bounds, if you enjoy climbing around on random level geometry, you definitely got to check out the boss room in Altus Tunnel. So it has these cool roots on the ceiling and the rock walls, and it's all decorative, but you can very easily climb around on it. So you got to find this candle on the left and this sort of triangular rock. You want to kind of run up the candle and then jump onto that top corner. And yeah, it's very easy to do that. It kind of looks like I'm hacking, but I'm not. So this next jump is a bit tricky. You got to go from this corner onto that kind of bullseye-shaped crystal up there. Might take a few tries, but just believe in yourself, and then you're up. And that's the only hard part. And then you can kind of explore. Okay, well, I fell down. Let me just show you that again. You got to jump up there. Yeah, get a second torch out. That'll help. Nice. Get on that corner and then jump in kind of that direction, and then you'll figure it out. So then you're up here, and it's this huge bit of like weird level geometry you can jump around on and explore. You can see a hole going out the level. That's kind of cool. I don't do a very good job of showing off this area in this clip. It's kind of terribly recorded. I think I put away my torches. Yeah, so now you can barely see what's going on, but I'll let you discover this place on your own, but it's kind of fun. There's always loads of funny messages up here people have left. It's really big, and you can run around for quite a bit. It's very enriching. I think there's even a bit where you can see the text on the screen in a bit when I get there. If I can make the jump. Oh, this is awful. Get over there, you fuck. There we go. It says Perfumer's Grotto, and that's because those two dungeons kind of link up. So that's funny. The game doesn't even know where you are. So yeah, definitely check this place out if you love jumping around on stuff and you're bored out of your mind because you're playing Altus Plateau and it's kind of a boring part of the game. Enjoy! Another thing you shouldn't miss if you're visiting Altus Plateau is this mysterious man. There's exactly one commoner in the entire game that wields a spear. There are frenzied commoners and stuff like that, they use spears, but this is the only normal looking one. There's a spear. He's sitting east of Perfumer's Ruins, just all on his own. Absolutely no reason for this guy to be here. And he has a nascent butterfly in front of him, which is a pretty rare item. So why did they put this guy here? I guess they don't need a reason, but it almost feels like a mistake or something, but I have no clue. My crazy theory is they meant to put him as an item corpse, because you find a lot of dead guys that look like this, with items on them. Except they put the live enemy there by mistake. It doesn't sound very likely, but that's my wacky theory that's probably not true. But what do you think? And if we're talking about rare enemies, I can't forget this guy in the giant conquering hero's grave. If you're a completionist, you definitely know what I'm talking about right now. It's the fire monk that has the monk's flame blade. This is the only place in the entire game you can find a fire monk that uses this sword that drops the item if you want to get it. And it's very weird that they did that. It's especially confusing because there's black flame monks who are just palette swaps, and they use seemingly the exact same sword, but they don't drop it. But I found some unused content that might explain some of this stupidity. There's unused icons for the weapons that the black flame monks use. They're very slightly different color to the ones the fire monks use. So maybe at one point in the game they would drop their special black flame variants of these weapons that they didn't end up putting in the game, probably because they're almost identical. Very unintuitive. Thank you, FromSoft, and don't bother fixing that in Tarnished Edition. It's fine. And here's the most pointless rare enemy fact that I know. South of Dominula, one of the dancers holds a lantern. This is the only one in the entire game that has the lantern, and when she sees you, she raises it up and screams. And that attack might look a bit familiar to you if you've played Dark Souls 3 recently. What's kind of interesting is there's an unused icon for that lantern, which looks pretty cool, so maybe at one point they were going to have that as a weapon that you could farm for 2 hours to get, and it would have been really, really pointless, just like all the other Celebrant weapons, so maybe it's a good thing they didn't put it in. So yeah, watch out for that incredibly dangerous enemy next time you're in this area. Okay, I'm almost going to wrap this video up because I'm bored of making it, but I got a couple more funny facts that I'm going to tell you. You might already know this first part, but the Crucible Knights, Ordovis, Siluria, and Devonia, are named after geological periods, and it makes sense because they're ancient knights, and they're named after things millions of years old. And the Bloodhound Knights, Darawil and Flo, are named after stages in the Ordovician period. In my opinion, they should have done one called Depingus. But it's interesting that the Bloodhound Knights have names related to the Crucible Knights, because they don't really seem to be connected in any way. But there's an extra layer to this, because the names of the Ordovician and Silurian periods come from ancient Celtic tribes that lived in Wales. Devonia just comes from Devon, which is in England. Darawil and Flo are towns in Australia and Sweden, respectively, so that's probably not related. But I like the ancient Wales connection, because there's a few other names in the game that come from Wales, and there's just general Welsh-inspired stuff in the game. So that's pretty neat if it's not a coincidence. Maybe it is, who knows. The other Welsh stuff, Blythe is Welsh for wolf, and he's a wolf man, so that's pretty straightforward. Selen is called Seren in Japan, and Seren is Welsh for star, and Selen does star magic. And also, according to WalesInGames.com, Caelid could come from Kai and Llyd, which would mean angry or inflamed field. So yeah, that sounds pretty likely. I bet there's a ton more Welsh-inspired place names in this game, but I don't know any of them because I don't know Welsh. Okay, I have one more fact for you, and this is the dumbest fact in the video. I've been saving the worst till last. But the building you start the game in, the Stranded Graveyard, when you come out, if you go to the bottom right of that building, you'll find some silver pickled fowl feet. It's pretty handy when you start. But at the bottom left of the building, way at the bottom of the cliff, you can find golden pickled fowl feet. So does that mean that the Stranded Graveyard building is like, from above, it's like a little person with feet? That's crazy. And then if you go to where the pubic hair would be on this little person, you get Arteria Leaf.